I'm still sat here with Kayleigh Davies, who's a graduate of our course and teacher. And you, I think, had a question you were going to ask me.
Yeah, I was wondering what you'd say about the idea of there being no such thing as evil.
Okay, that's a good question, I think, and a good question in religious studies, because we've got very used to, I think, partly through tabloid newspapers and things, to the idea of evil people or evil being kind of out in the world, and through films, of course, and horror films, particularly this idea that evil is a force and a power. And actually within Christianity and within many other religions, actually, that doesn't reflect well what's really contained within the religions. So within Christianity, traditionally, quite a few Christian thinkers have thought that evil isn't a thing. So we go back into ancient Christianity and kind of theology thinking that evil is an absence of good. So, it's not just that it's a thing and it's a force. More generally, we could take the view that actually evil is talking about an evil force is more talking about an externalized form of our own. People are full of things that aren't good. We're full of kind of resentments and fears and desires to do things that are wrong. And but rather than blame ourselves and think I'm not a very good person and a bad person, the idea that there's an evil force trying to make us do bad things or tempt us, or that the universe is a battle between a good power and an evil power, is in a way much more tempting. And I think one thing we were talking about before, I think, was Satan and the devil. And of course there are those who would describe themselves as Satanists and things who wouldn't want to see Satan as the embodiment of evil. But of course in a lot of traditional Christianity, Christians would say, well, the devil, or a figure of that sort, it represents everything that God is against. If God is for love and kindness and truth and beauty, the devil is for ugliness and evil and wrongness and things. But I think even within the Christian tradition, many will say that's kind of true, but that doesn't mean you have to believe in a literal devil with a kind of horn tail and a pitchfork and in charge of hell. Christian thought often is rather ambivalent about hell being a place anyway, rather than being a way to talk about separation from God. And the devil is really a metaphor for many people about the fact that we live in a constant struggle to do the right thing. And doing the right thing is difficult, and we know there are forces within us that lead us to often do the wrong thing, and we often kind of battle internally. So it might be a kind of misreading, and I think you find that also in Buddhism. There's this figure Mara, which people sometimes call the Buddhist devil, the Buddhist tempter. But I think in almost all forms of Buddhism, Mara, this kind of tempter figure, is really a way of collectively identifying our temptations. So temptation to give up meditating, to give up walking on the Buddhist path and to do what's easy. And the Buddha himself is seen as the night before his enlightenment in a battle with Mara's horde. They're all firing, there's paintings in Thai temples where he's meditating, they're all firing arrows at him that are in temptation, but he's touching the ground, special mudra, and calling on his past good karma, and all the arrows turn into flowers. Very evocative pictures, but there is this idea of temptation, of pushing towards doing the wrong thing, that I think is a way of understanding better what they mean by evil. The other sense is the problem of evil, that kind of sense of evil in the world, not so much me being tempted to do bad things, but a way of talking about unnecessary suffering. So when we see people who've done nothing wrong, having to suffer diseases and suffer from earthquakes and volcanoes and all the things that happen in the world, thinking that's evil, that's what true evil looks like. You might read in the paper, or a priest might often be on television saying, how can you believe in a God that allows this? Some disaster site. And that is a way really of using the notion of evil and all the rhetorical force of the idea of evil to describe really unnecessary suffering, suffering in the world. So I think actually the idea of evil as an external force and power, although it's very handy for newspaper headline writers and it fits in well with horror films, I'm not sure how much of a place it really has in hardly any of the world's religions. It's kind of misconception.
So would you say it's a human creation?
I mean,
The force of
yeah.
evil.
I mean, certainly I think for non-religious people, it's very easy to say that evil's a kind of an idea that we've come up with to explain our bad impulses. And we might think, well, non-religious people think it's human creation, religious people think it's a real thing. But that's too simplistic. So I think that it's the idea that evil is a human creation, or evil is this idea that is in interplay with our personal consciousnesses and things, is actually much more common in religious belief than people perhaps outside religions think it is. So that was a long way of saying yes.
Okay.